Let's look at another object from the recent Christie's auction. This is an ancient Egyptian sandstone relief coming from the Amarna period. If you haven't heard of the Amarna period, it's a very short-lived time period in the 18th dynasty during the New Kingdom, approximately 1352 to 1336 BCE. This is when Pharaoh Akhenaten changed pretty much every single different aspect of ancient Egyptian culture, including building a new capital, moving the entire court there, and changing the art style wildly. Which is why this piece might look a little strange if you have seen kind of the standardization of ancient Egyptian art. This piece most likely depicts a young princess with this shaved, elongated head, which is typical for this time period, part of this new art style, and definitely not an indication that aliens existed during this time. The fragment is of a sandstone talatat, which essentially was a way of standardizing and making a building more efficient by using similar sized blocks that were carved and then plastered around it. And this is done typically during the Amarna period, and so everything is kind of found in these little blocks, but other parts have kind of worn away because they were made of insufficient material. Kind of caressing the head right here, you can see the arm of another. Now, this definitely could be an adult, probably one of the royal parents, but it also could most likely be one of the other royal children, because if you kind of look at the proportions here, they seem to be of a similar size. Scenes of affection like this are much more common during this time period, but very uncommon during all the other time periods of ancient Egypt. Stylistically, this fragment reflects the kind of very, very exaggerated art style and the exaggeration of body proportions that you see at the very early part of Akhenaten's reign. Now, because this talatat was most likely in some sort of monumental temple relief, there are usually only 3 of the daughters of Akhenaten that are typically displayed there. Even though he had 6 daughters, the 3 eldest daughters are depicted more in public settings, while all 6 of the daughters would be depicted in more private settings like tombs. This means that this child could either be Meret Aten, Meket Aten, or Anksen and Pa-Aten, later Ankhesenamun, the wife of Tutankhamun. This piece was originally in the collection of Jacques Scott, a Belgian psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, who very interestingly was influenced by Sigmund Freud, who himself was very influenced by the ancient Egyptians and wrote a lot about them during his lifetime. It was likely bought by him in 1963 and owned until his death in 2007, and then went on auction in 2009. All it says about the current owner is that it is the property of a princely collection, which I really have no idea what that could mean. This piece was estimated to go from 7,000 to 9,000 British pounds, but it sold for a whopping 32,760 pounds. And honestly, for a piece from the Amarna period, which is increasingly rare, I suspected that price would go much higher.